I think while Xinghan is working hard on trying to accommodate my difficulties, perhaps I should start by introducing myself. So, good afternoon. Huge thanks. Not that you didn't do a good job, but I feel I should add something more. So, good afternoon. Huge thanks to the SIGB team for having me here today. And actually, what they've also done is gave me the opportunity to talk about one of my passion projects for this year. So, our newest food innovation space, located here in Singapore. And of course, we already covered this morning all the reasons why Singapore, no-brainer, and a glimpse of the sensory-based enablers that have made the Future Bites Food Design Studio possible. So I feel that in the presence of what is possibly the largest number of experts at the moment in sensory, gathered in one room in the whole country, I feel strongly I should declare upfront that I am not a practitioner, but rather perhaps best think of me as a fan. So as a product designer, I'm a professional beneficiary of all the great work that all of you do, as well as my colleagues in this space. And please be gentle, therefore, if you feel the need to catch me in the corridors later and tell me off for conflating sensory with half a dozen other disciplines. This is what innovation people do, right? Now, I need to put this slide over. Which one is the one? This one here. Yeah. So to add a little bit of further background context, if like me, you've been around the food industry for a while, you may perhaps have heard of the two organizations of DSM and Firmenich before we merged together as a new joint entity in May of last year. So while as DSM Firmenich, we are therefore only around 18 months young, individually both companies brought more than a century of tradition and history in science and research into the new organization. And speaking personally from an R&D standpoint, it's been very exciting to be able to explore all these new areas of science and technology from across the wider company, especially in our important areas of beauty, nutrition, and health. Every day still feels like a brand new day of discovery and possibility in so many different ways. At this point in time, I can hear my boss going, focus, Daphne. Sorry, I probably shouldn't be airing my dirty laundry here. So post-merger, we had 4 business units or BUs, and I have 2 other colleagues with me here today. So very important, and I'll tell you why later. So I have Rina. So Rina, if you wave, Rina and I are both from the Taste, Texture and Health business unit, and Kailing, the lady in green, is from the Health, Nutrition and Care business unit. Now, for those of you physically on site, please do come and say hello to us during the break. We are feeding you. Because really, proof of the pudding is in the eating. How can we call ourselves part of the food industry if we don't have something for you to taste? Maybe just to, and this, ladies and gentlemen, to be upfront about it, is the dream. And what I've heard today basically shows that many of you are on the same page as us. So basically, in a nutshell, we want to create a future world where the food tastes good, feels good, and is good for you. So with that said, 3 months ago, after more than a year of planning and construction, we inaugurated our purpose-built design studio in September, with the aim to making this dream a reality. For those of us who are based in Singapore and are active in the general food scene, in fact, some of you may already be sitting here, you'll find perhaps quite a few familiar faces in this photo. And at this point in time, you may also be thinking, this just looks like a lab. Why are you calling it a design studio? And the answer, very short answer, very simple, it's about our approach. And having previously run my own food consultancy, having taught at university product development courses, having worked as a product developer, my experience has been that it's still very common today to have food-related innovation projects run along largely linear lines. The development process, and it really is a process for many companies out there. The selection criteria tends to be dictated by, for example, brand guidelines, existing factory equipment, existing access to raw materials, and entrepreneurs' gut feel. What kind of products have worked for the company in the past? What are our competitors making? And the list goes on. Sensory is then often used to validate the yes, and or prototypes that already fall within specific guardrails related to this development project. So taking a design approach means that we look far broader and with a more outside-in, multidimensional lens in order to solve the often very complex problems. So the dream that we have is a very complex problem because it starts all the way from where our food is produced, how it's produced, how do we process it, and of course, one of the things that we see is that I still need to make sure that somebody wants to buy it at the end of the day, right? And that's where I think it's a very complex problem that requires all of us to work together in order to try and fix. As you can imagine, this considerably less restricted frame of thinking can bring valuable new perspectives, but also can very quickly degenerate into unproductive paralysis if not properly managed. And so therefore, this brings us to the design philosophy for Future Bytes. So this is what helps to shape our collective lens, but it's not so restrictive that we carry the past with us and prevents us from thinking laterally or in multiple new dimensions. So starting from the Venn diagram in the center, our vision for the food of the future is that they should be desirable to consumers. I think, again, very obvious to all of us here, while delivering essential nutrition and without compromising on sustainability. I think I sound a bit like a broken record compared to everybody else on the floor today. But we also understand that for our solutions to work and generate real impact, they must also be commercially relevant. So we also ensure that we build into our designs affordability and scalability. So being situated in Asia, we are kicking off the scope for the design studio with addressing the challenges of alternative proteins as demand from Asian consumers is expected to rise exponentially for protein in the near future. I think, one of the things that we do know from all of us working in future food is that this presents several sensory challenges. Chalkiness, I think somebody mentioned astringency earlier. Texture, even physical things like solubility can play a part. And so it is important for us, we felt, to address some of these challenges as far upstream as possible to design effective solutions. So let's take a look at some of the sensory-based enablers that have helped us to do this. So the first one, not surprisingly, in the interest of time and to maximize the context, sorry for most slides, I just thought I would pick 3. And some of you are visiting us tomorrow, so I think I should stick with 3. I'm sure somebody has the time on. So starting with the leftmost, obviously with taste and flavor for business, or one of our core activities, no surprises, we have a full suite of sensory capabilities. And you will see, for those of you who are visiting us tomorrow, that we are located in the same building as the rest of the sensory teams. So therefore, it's been very convenient for us to pop upstairs and get expertise, get help. It might also not be surprising to see AI being profiled. It's already been mentioned at least once today. And while it is a hot topic at the moment, what is not so obvious perhaps is that as a total entity, we've actually been in this game for close to a decade. And in fact, we were the first flavor house to launch an AI-created flavor in 2023. And this flavor was specially designed to work in plant-based meat. This was, of course, made possible whenever you look at AI, huge amounts of data. And today we continue to be very active in continuing to link sensory data within our AI tools and total ecosystem. And this has enabled us to understand, for example, profile attributes that drive liking for a particular food segment. And from a design perspective, and this is more important for me, to identify white or gray space that could be considered or should be considered, and other outputs that have enabled us to form the design brief. Sometimes down to the level of what combination of materials is key or important. And as an example, I've got peach here. This is our flavor of the year. And when we ran this through AI, there have been certainly some very interesting outputs that we could investigate further. We are coming to the end of 2024, and so therefore this will be replaced soon. We're also eagerly awaiting. And last but certainly not least, we pair sensory, and I think for those of you from Ronell, I think this is not a surprise, perhaps, but we pair with receptor biology to identify the building blocks of effective solutions for unpleasant off notes and enhancement of certain tastes. So an example of this is in sugar reduction, where our combined sensory and technology efforts have enabled us to actually make some fairly ambitious goals. So we have committed to removing 2.8 trillion calories of sugar from the diet by 2030. And in fact, I think the last I heard, we might actually hit this target in 2028. So just for, I actually did this calculation when I was doing this presentation. So 2.8 trillion calories from sugar is about 700 million kilos of sugar, which is about 700,000 tons, if you will, as well. Our interest in the space also extends beyond sugar reduction to umami, sodium reduction, and not to forget modulation effects, such as masking, mouthfeel, and a number of other key attributes. So, all of this sounds really nice. But how does it really translate into real life? I get you. So, as I mentioned earlier, proof of the pudding is always in the eating. So I invite all of you to try the design prototypes that we have brought with us today. For those of you online, sorry, I owe you. Feel free to cash in on the IOU when we next visit Singapore. So today we have both a sweet beverage and a couple of savory snacks. And each one of these has been made possible by at least one of the sensory-based enablers I've just mentioned. Now, if you have allergen concerns, please talk to one of us before you actually try them for your safety. The problem with novel or future foods is that sometimes, if you've never tried it, I don't know the answer either. Everything that we've brought today is halal suitable and vegetarian, with 2 out of 3 being vegan friendly. So, just to give you an idea of what you're going to get. So, kicking off with the sweet side, if you're not familiar with what is a mango lassi, it's basically a smoothie made with yogurt that has been blended with a specific variety of mango. I think just as a nod to Connor, mango is something that's very specific to the beach population, so this is the correct one, hopefully. And can typically be identified as part of Indian cuisine. So while you can see from the list that this has a number of other solutions included in the concept, what I would like to draw your attention to when you taste it later is the protein in the lassi. So for those of us who work with plant-based dairy, one of the biggest challenges we face is that of protein equivalence. When we compare cow's milk with plant milks, the protein level is often much, much lower. So to give you an example, if you take a coconut yogurt and you look at the label, the protein content is likely to be, in some cases, less than 0.5, if not negligible. Whereas if we look at a standard cow's milk yogurt, just the standard stuff, not the Greek stuff, is sitting around, say, around about 3%. So there's a huge nutritional gap here that needs to be addressed if we're looking at protein levels. So the closest we have at the moment for plant is soy. But what we do know is that soy is not well accepted by Western palates. You know, here in Asia, we grew up with it. It's something that we take as being quite natural, so we don't have as much issues with it, aside from the fact that if you talk about soy yogurt, that's when my parents used to tell me to throw it out because it's gone off. So some of these cues are very hard for us to get over. And this is where we need some degree of masking sometimes to bring it back into what most consumers expect it to be as in the form of the yogurt. So other plant proteins, they can present with insolubility issues, high viscosity. Sometimes they just look bad, can be brown instead of white. And in this case, what we've actually done is we've been able to find a single cell protein. So this for some of you, this might be your first time trying a single cell protein. And we've been actually able to increase the level of protein in this to that even exceeding. So I look forward to what you think about it. It is 100% plant-based. So also looking forward to what you think about it, because a couple of weeks ago, I had a colleague turn up who supplied me with a single cell protein and gave me some sample to try. And without any warning, he leaned across to the next table. We were in Seattle. at MBS, and he started conducting a little mini CLT with these two strangers next door. But they were professionals and know how to make food safer. And one of the guys loved it, and the other one, who looked as if he had some degree of Indian descent, said, I have lassi quite often, and this just doesn't taste right. I'm sorry. Now, as a food designer, my food gets criticized 4 times a day, so I'm quite immune to this kind of criticism. I take it as good feedback. So we were all trying to assure him, no, it's okay, we value your feedback. And then he said, well, what's in this? I said, well, it's 100% plant-based. He goes, oh, in which case this is really good. I feel sorry for my sensory colleagues who are trying to capture this of feedback, really. So, next one. So, I wanted to first start off by saying, despite the little cute cricket icon in the corner, and the fact that the third line from the top says insect protein, there is no cricket-based snack today. Again, I think there is a slight psychophysics component here, because, it's been fascinating, really. So some of our testers, or people who took it around, were very excited to try this, and it was because I've never tried cricket. Can I have some? Others were like, oh, but it doesn't look like cricket. Okay, I'll try some. And there were others there who said, what? It's not cricket? No, don't give it to me. Don't give it to go away. And for weeks after we started the first prototype, people, when we walked down the corridors, would be like, are you making cricket again today? No, I don't want any. So again, this response, and I think this is again linked to the psychophysics, they have nothing to do with the actual sensory properties. And I guess this is something you'll cover in the panel later in the day on future foods. But just to reassure everyone, again, today there is absolutely no cricket, but there is a protein story here. The snacks you will taste are sitting at around 27% protein, plant-based, and they are made from canola, from the expanding of waste, from canola oil extraction, and we have been able to find a way to deliver these nutritionally, upcycled, and I hope it tastes good. So there are 2 variants today. One, we have called seaweed, but the seaweed is really just a visual cue, because we found that when we didn't have the seaweed, people were very confused about what it could be. But what this is actually one of our umami, or a combination of our umami solutions from our chemosensitive research. And I don't think what you guys might think of it. It's very Asian in some ways, so apologies up front if you don't like it. And the second one we have is actually the 4Ts. It's an Asian 4Ts, again, just being up front here. It is not it's called Kato Subaki. Kato Subaki, yes. It's not one of those. It does not have blue cheese, because in Asia we don't like any of this. Guilty as charged, sorry. Please do. And what we have been able to do again with some of our mouthfeel tools is we've been able to deliver a hopefully relatively convincing Asian cheese profile. It's also sweet, by the way. And, but with less fat than what you might expect for snacks like this. And so with that, I seem to have not run out of time.